Hi folks, Matt Eaton here, Scholar Gladiatoria. So, as my regular viewers will know, over the last year or two I've done a few reviews of knives from a company called Poshland Knives. And Ozzy at Poshland Knives has been good to me, and we've developed quite a good working relationship in terms of getting a knife designed how I want it. And any of you who want to design your own knives, the Poshland is very good at doing that. Now, I've previously picked up two things which I kind of, not criticisms, but kind of constructive feedback on Poshland Knives. One was the sort of unknown nature of the type of steel used. I believe it's something similar to 1095, and I said, in my early reviews I said I didn't know what the heat treatment was like, and subsequently to that I did some testing of one of their knives that they sent to me, where I chopped a fairway through a tree stump with one, and I'm just going to show a little bit of that video here now. And so that pretty much, to me, conclusively showed that both the construction of the hilt and the quality of the blade itself was certainly very strong. There was no sign of any damage to the edge. There was no loosening in the hilt. There were obviously no bends or breaks or anything like that. So it seems to me that the steel quality and the heat treatment of the blades is pretty damn good. And in actual fact, I got a rough sense of the hardness of the blade, because I actually did some modification to that Bowie knife that I used for chopping into the tree stump, and it was fairly hard to file. So obviously I don't have a machine for testing the Rockwell or Vickers hardness of steel, but just from doing modifications to the blade of that knife, I got a sense of the fact it was pretty hard steel. And I have sharpened all of the knives that I've had from them myself, and there's been some variation in the hardness, but they've all been pretty hard. They've certainly not been soft at all. So I think they've got pretty good edge retention. They can certainly take a good edge, and in terms of the heat treatment from a sort of shock, from sort of impact resistance point of view, they seem very good as well. So a previous Bowie knife that I actually got from them was this one shown here, which I have done a review of before, and it's the one with a direct bevel to the edge. You see, there's no obvious secondary bevel, and it has a black buffalo horn grip with white bone pommel, and I was always very happy with this Bowie knife. I really liked it. And so when I came to think of getting another one from them, I thought, okay, well, I want to keep a blade that's essentially pretty similar to that, because we're getting to, we're looking at a sort of 9-inch blade, and it's just the design of it was really right for me. So essentially what I did, and one of my friends had actually bought a knife from Poshland Knives himself that he had designed. He'd drawn up with measurements and so on, and I thought, well, I'll do the same. And so I essentially drew up a sketch of exactly what I wanted from them. You'll notice that I couldn't fit the whole thing on one A4 sheet. I wanted to do it life size, so I drew the blade there and the hilt there, and I made notes about the details, and I put measurements on. I even put down there, I put details about the cross section at different points along the blade. And essentially what I got back was pretty much exactly what I put in my drawing, and I'm exceptionally happy with this knife. And this is complete honesty. I'm not saying this for the purposes of extra sales or because I'm being paid or anything like that. This is my favourite knife that I own at the moment. I absolutely love it. And I mentioned before there were a couple of criticisms I'd made, not criticisms, constructive comments I'd made about Poshland Knives in the past, one of them being the sort of unknown nature of the steel quality. I'm now kind of fairly confident on that front, because as I've mentioned, I've done various things to the blades that make me fairly convinced that they are good quality steel and well heat treated. But the other thing was about the scabbards. Now with the, let's pick up the other knife for a second. with these scabbards there was an issue with the way that the leather was treated or tanned, or I don't know, that was not being very good to the steel of these blades. And it was actually, this is a carbon steel blade, I should mention, something like 1095 steel, which I specified. They will make stainless blades if you want them, and they also specialise in doing pattern welded, so-called Damascus. It's not real Damascus, it's pattern welded blades. But I specifically wanted a sort of, you know, more traditional design, i.e. a carbon steel blade. And the combination of carbon steel with these scabbards didn't go together very well. There was something about the leather that was reacting badly with the steel and causing a level of discoloration to the blades. However, since then, Uzzy has now got a completely new scabbard maker, and you can actually see that the scabbards are, you can see it's made by a different craftsman, and it's a much nicer quality leather. It feels nicer, the stitching's better, the fit of the edges is better, it just feels chunkier, it's just nicer. So here is the knife that I got, and as you can see it's essentially a coffin hilted Bowie knife, fairly typical American design of around 1835, 1840, very popular at that period. The scabbard has a normal press stud clip, but if you wanted to make it more traditional you could dispense with that, get rid of that. But the scabbard is much better quality than the old ones. And here is the knife. So you can see we've got a wedge section, single bevel. We have a false edge here. The only thing that's different about this knife compared to my drawings is I did ask for a sharpened false edge, and completely fair to Uzzy, Uzzy actually contacted me and said that they hadn't sharpened the false edge and he was going to get it sharpened, and I said, you know, don't worry about it, I can do that myself. And so he just sent it as is. So if you request a sharpened false edge, they will give you a sharpened false edge. And Uzzy did point out that it hadn't been sharpened before he sent the knife to me. It has come well sharpened. I'm not going to run my fingers across the edge. It's not super sharp. I will certainly make it sharper, but it's as sharp as most production knives are. But this is obviously a custom design knife. These come in, well, I'll put the link actually to this specific knife below, but the prices, I think the prices for what you're getting from Poshland Knives are, I think, really reasonable. And bear in mind, this is essentially a custom made knife, so you can get a knife made to your design for, you know, for around £100 or less, which I think is really reasonable actually. I think they're very good quality for the money. So the features that I designed, so you'll notice the blade is the same as the other one. It's a single bevel with a false edge coming pretty much halfway down the blade. It's about 9.5 inch blade. You'll notice I've added a Spanish notch, and yes, we don't really know what the Spanish notch is for. There's various theories, but no one actually knows. There's a small ricasso at the bottom, so the base of the blade is a rectangular section, and then it immediately goes to a wedge section here, and the wedge section carries all the way along, so it's a straight bevel to the edge on each side. The guard is brass. I like brass guards because you don't have to worry about handling them a lot, and steel guards, obviously they can get corrosion and rust. Brass guard doesn't. It doesn't corrode, not from handling anyway. And you'll notice that I have specifically made the guard boat shaped. This is fairly traditional, but I specifically wanted something that was quite pointy, just for a difference, and also it's slightly longer than the other guards I've had in the past. You'll notice that now becomes a fairly effective close range punching or striking weapon in itself, and it is pretty damn pointy and very nicely shaped, and I'm very happy with how that came out, and also happy with the length. It provides a good degree of protection. The tang is full width. I know in the past videos I've mentioned things about possible hidden tangs. This is, and you can see it very clearly, is very much the blade continued. So that tang is the full width of the grip, and just it is, you know, the blade continued all the way to the end there. The grip scales in this case are made of rosewood, I believe, and they're very nice bits of wood, very nicely coloured and very nicely shaped, and they did exactly what I asked them to do in the design, and that is, you'll notice it's got a bevel, so that essentially a flat slab, very slight rounded nature to it, but basically flat, riveted with 7 brass rivets all the way through the tang. You can just see there going around, and there's a really nice bevel which goes quite angular all the way around, and the sides are slightly bowed in. This gives, and I knew in the past from handling other coffin handled Bowie knives of this kind of 1830s, 1840s design, that sits really comfortably in the hand. So although it's quite angular, it's smooth enough that it just fits really nicely into the base of the palm of your hand there. And with the thumb up grip, which is what I would generally use with the Bowie knife, you've got enough length there, and obviously you can measure that length from thumb to base of palm and ask for that length of grip on your Bowie knife, but it sits in really well there, and because of that scoop, because of that sort of bowed in edge there, your thumb and that bit of muscle of your hand there sits really nicely behind the guard. So it's incredibly comfortable grip, and of course ergonomically it's exactly the right size and thickness and shape because I gave the measurements, and you of course can do this if you were to order a knife from Poshland or any other custom knife maker, in fairness. So it's very important that you measure where your hand would go on a grip and make it right to you, because it will massively increase how good that knife feels in your hand. The blade is, it's got authority to it. You can make a swish in the air if you do snap cuts with it, but it's light as well. It's a good balance between lightness and sort of chopping authority. It's just a lovely, lovely knife, and I'm exceptionally happy with it. And as I say, it is the nicest Bowie knife I've ever owned, either modern or antique, and it's the nicest knife that I currently own, or rather it's the knife that I like the most. And you know, if I had to go into a sort of survival situation tomorrow, this would be the knife I'd take. If I could only take one knife, this would be it. I trust the steel quality because I have tested the other knives from this company myself. I have filed them, I know about the hardness, I know about the toughness, and this is a really, really lovely example. I may at some point in the future do videos where I actually chop some stuff up with this to demonstrate its power and what it can do, and also its stabbing potential. Just to mention one thing on the stabbing potential, it's still got a fair amount of meat at the tip, which I personally really like. I have got one of the Hanway Bowie knives, which are quite nice, but to me they've always seemed a bit flimsy. The steel quality is good, or relatively good, and they're traditional designs, but the problem from my perspective is the Hanways tend to be a little bit too thin at the tip, and if you're thrusting into anything really strong or resistive, you can curl the tip quite easily, or even just bend it, or even break it perhaps. So this is a little bit more robust at the tip, which I much prefer. So there we go, guys. I'll put the link to this specific knife below from Poshland Knives, so if you want to get this exact knife then you can do. Designed by Matt Easton, designed by yours truly. Or of course you could get a variation on this. You could change the grip material, change the proportions, you could make it bigger, you could make it smaller, you could change the style of guard, or you could just do exactly what I did and actually get your own drawings and send it to Uzzy and get them to make your knife or kukri or dagger or whatever you want from them. So there we go, guys, my latest knife from Poshland Knives, currently my absolute favourite knife. Cheers folks. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and feel free to follow us on Facebook.